would Speaker Newt Gingrich have cut the deal the president did? And how would he feel as a Republican speaker if the Republican president cut a deal with Democratic leadership? Joining us now to talk about that, the speaker himself, the former speaker, Newt Gingrich. Newt, would you have cut cut that deal if you were President Trump?
Sure. I think you had set up two good questions. Would I feel a bit irritated if I was Speaker Ryan? Yes. Would I have cut the deal if I were President Trump? Yes. Both are true. I think Trump saw a situation with everything he just saw in Houston, now looking at what's coming at Florida, and I think his feeling was, we got to get some movement in Washington. We spent 8 months and we didn't get big things done. I'm going to cut a deal with somebody. I'm going to get something done this week. I'm going to get the money to Houston, and to do that, I've got to get the debt ceiling taken care of. And he cut a 90-day deal. Now we'll see what happens during the 90 days. I don't think this is some gigantic earthquake. I think it's an immediate tactical move by the president to get some momentum.
Is it going to work? Are we finally getting the Speaker and Mitch McConnell's attention?
Well, I think he's always had McConnell and Ryan's attention. I mean, the problem McConnell has is he's got a very narrow majority in the Senate. McConnell carries 49 out of 52, and people say that's a failure. Well, people don't want to blame Chuck Schumer, who had 48-0 against Trump on health care. The same thing with Ryan. Ryan ultimately took 2 tries. He ultimately got repeal of Obamacare through the House. So I don't think it's that they're not trying to cooperate. I think that it's a very hard job. They're trying to do very big things. Right. And I think that both Ryan and McConnell understand the whole game this fall is the tax cut. If they get the kind of tax cut through that Secretary Mnuchin has been describing, well, I call it a tax cut because I don't think the average American in the end gets excited by tax reform. But I think if they have more money in their pocket by Christmas, if they see more economic growth, if they see more job creation, then this will have been a successful year. Sure. It comes down to one gigantic bill. And I think they are going to work together, and I doubt very much if he's going to have Schumer and Pelosi helping him pass a tax cut.
But I tell you what, Speaker, you've got to admit there were big smiles on the faces of Chuck and Nancy a couple of days ago. And what the weird part is I was watching television, and there were a lot of Democrats talking about what a good leader the President of the United States was in doing this particular deal, something they had not said before that moment.
Look, and it's going to be fascinating to watch, because you'll notice when Senator Feinstein said that the president was right, that the DACA agreement was unconstitutional, she suddenly had left-wing Democrats in California saying, oh, she's going to get a primary opponent. I want to see what the left does. If Pelosi and Schumer make this a habit, they will have a rebellion on their left in a matter of weeks. This is a one-time deal. For the president, it's a very smart deal. It gets momentum the first week back. It changes the tone. It gets the money to Houston. And it postpones the big fight over the debt ceiling for 90 days. And I think the president's attitude is, who knows what's going to happen over 90 days.
Mr. Speaker, what's kind of interesting, too, is that these two leaders have cut a deal with the president. That also sets a precedent. It sets a precedent for other Democrats who want to vote what's best for the country and aren't dug into party ideology. There's no longer the fear of reprisal because their so-called leaders who said you have to resist this president went along at least once. There is now a reason and something to look back on when there's an issue that they can agree with the president on.
If you're trying to get some Democratic votes on the big tax cut bill, or as you put it, the big tax reform bill, it's nice to break the ice. It's a little harder now for Schumer and Pelosi to say, no, 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 you can't vote with Trump, as they cheerfully stood next to him saying you can vote with Trump. So I think you're right. It actually makes it easier for people like Senator Heitkamp from North Dakota, who did fly on the airplane to North Dakota, Trump's second-best state that has a Democratic senator, and she has a lot more pressure today to vote yes on the tax bill.
I don't know if the President of the United States was listening to you, Newt, but within the last minute, a moment ago, you were talking a little bit about the number of votes McConnell has and how many Schumer has, and Donald Trump just tweeted out, Republicans, sorry, but I've been hearing about repeal and replace for 7 years. Didn't happen. Even worse, the Senate filibuster rule will never allow the Republicans to pass even great legislation. 8 Democrats control will rarely get 60 versus 51 votes. It is a Republican death wish. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's slightly strong, but I think he's making a point here. Senator McConnell is a traditionalist. He wrote a brilliant book called The Long Game, talking about his love of the Senate and the importance of the Senate in the U.S. Constitution. And I think what the president's saying is, look, if you stick with 60 votes as the key threshold, then as president, I got to go find a bunch of Democrats. Yep. So you got to have it one way or the other. You want an all-Republican policy decision, you got to break the filibuster with 51 votes. Right. You don't want to break it with 51 votes, you force me to go find Democrats. I think it's a very legitimate conversation being held, as it often is in this country, in public.
It's always good to see you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Have a great weekend.